Hello, good evening everyone. Liv, Jeanette, Ruby Ann, Rhys and Bethany.
Hello.
It's a pleasure to have you all here. It's quite a full house we've got going. I wonder if we could win some sort of poker challenge with all these different faces on the screen. But that's not why we're here. We're not here to win at poker. We're here just to talk about something that comes up at this time of year, and that is that there's an awful lot of people who are about to head off into the great unknown, that is go off to uni to study, for example, archaeology, or in the case of Jeanette, anthropology. And I suppose really it's always a timely time to think about hints and tips and anecdotes, I guess, when it comes to going to university. So I guess Bethany is the only one here who hasn't yet been to university. You're about to head off. First of all, is there anything that any of you guys desperately want to share about going to uni, especially in the first year?
Don't do what I did. First day, do if you can Google Street View walk around campus so you can find your house, so you don't end up in someone else's classroom.
Right. Okay. So find your house. That's a good start. You know, people are going to be like, I'm not sure university is accepting such high quality people as we think. But yes, okay, find where you're going to live. That's a good idea. And
or you have a huge campus as in Gothenburg.
Okay, fair enough.
We have like 4 different campuses for the same university.
Okay, but that's a good basic pro tip though. Find where you're living. That's good. Any other?
It's a lot less embarrassing to walk around first to see where your lectures are and bump into a few mad professors who would direct you than walking into, I know the actuarial science lecturer at my university likes to introduce any stray wanderers into his class to Archaeology 1000, which I always thought would be funny if I joined in and just walked in and said, this is the place I'm meant to be. So yeah, just wandering around before always helpful.
They probably will introduce you to other confused students that you can befriend as well. So, and it's always good to have a slight social scene before, so you don't have just strangers around you.
Okay. Now, I suppose actually that's possibly the first thing that I would say is it's a good idea to bear in mind that everyone's in the same boat as you. That actually you're surrounded by people who are just as confused, just as befuddled, and just as potentially nervous as you are. So don't assume that everyone else is an expert. You know, dive in. What about, and this is a biggie, Freshers Week? How much should you dive into getting involved in extracurricular activities?
I'm going to need a lot of advice on this one because we get a freshers fortnight, not a freshers week. So you guys are going to have to help me.
I only joined the RPG group though, so but find other geeks or something that you're interested in. There are usually societies for just about everything.
I would say it's okay to, go to the general interest meetings for lots of different things, be willing to try out things just because, see if you like it or not. Don't limit yourself. But also don't try to take on too much. You could suffer from that problem of joining, like 5 different student groups and then not having any time for your coursework or for, actual life outside of it. And it can, I think, become very daunting. So
I had a friend who became like the secretary for a chapter of kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, but real. It's called LARPing, where you sort of go out with foam swords and pretend to hit each other in a forest or whatever. And she became so stressed at being the secretary for this group that actually she dropped out of her first year in order to be full-time secretary and then rejoin the course a year later. Don't do that. That's not something to do.
There's a club at my university that the president has never passed his year while he was president of that club, because they get so caught in it that it's never possible to actually get through your coursework. and be president.
Yeah, or you can do as some of the computer guys that had a frat, I guess you can call it in English. In Swedish we have, it's called a sexmästeri. It's like a party society. All they do is party. That's their thing. And they used to study drunk. Don't do that. You time to study sober.
Okay, don't study drunk. You know, we've got some amazing pro-study tips here going. You know, find where you live, don't study drunk. I'm impressed. But actually, on that note, actually, I mean, this is something that I did say around about this time last year to people going off to uni, and that is, I suppose, for my part, I would say don't take the first year too seriously. Take it seriously, do it, pass. In fact, do a little bit better than passing, but you don't rush to do your whole degree in 1 year, because you can't do it, and frankly you'll regret it, because when you actually are having to do your thesis or whatever, and everyone else has got the memories to or the mornings after to lean on from the first year, you'll be going, but I've been working straight for 3 years, I need some time off. so I'd say enjoy your first year. That'd probably be one of my tips. What about you, Rhys? What do you guys get up to in Oz in uni? Do you have any thoughts or tips?
The getting drunk one was a pretty good one. Most universities have bars, so don't get caught out being in there all the time. But no, my tip would be work out if you're going to catch public transport or drive before you go to uni, and get that stuff sorted out real early. Because if you're driving to university, over here, for example, you have to pay for a permit to park there for the entire year, and that costs quite a bit. And some students get caught out paying for a permit that they don't need, because they find out they can just catch public transport, or vice versa, that they need to, and they're paying a lot more money for parking because they didn't get the permit at the start of the year. The other thing I would say is that going from high school to university for me was a big step. I personally felt that high school didn't really prepare me for the kind of work that we were doing at university. I studied, in my last year, I studied English literature, which that helped me a lot, because you had to look at things quite critically, writing critical essays and things like that. And I felt that I kind of wished that my high school had done that for a couple of years running before finishing. And I think that if you can start to work out what critical thinking is, and really try and get that down before you get into your first year and write your first set of essays, you'll be sweet after that.
Okay. Actually, that's something else comes to mind. Another lesson that I learned very early on when it comes to actually thinking and essay writing is to remember that an essay is only ever an attempt to answer a question. It actually literally means taking a shot at something, making an attempt. Too often, I certainly would find myself getting into trying to write the definitive answer to this particular question, when actually you're going to be writing so many of these things that you just need to bear in mind that each and every one is just an attempt to try and answer a question. But actually, when it comes to the critical thinking or this kind of thing, I think one thing that certainly a lot of people that I observed, not necessarily my people in my uni, but people, my friends from high school, were all freaking out about when they first went to uni, was actually the fact that they were expected to work alone, essentially work, self-driven study is what I'm talking about. I wouldn't, if I was going to uni, I wouldn't expect to have the support of a named lecturer or a tutor 24/7, or even actually as often as you do with a teacher at school. It's not really their job to make sure you're learning, and it's also not really their job to necessarily encourage you, and I mean this in the best possible way, in so much as if you're not able to encourage yourself to do study, then you're not going to do well over the course of the 3 years. You need to be able to have a sort of a self-driving passion, and then you'll be encouraged. It's one of those weird things where I think that's an important skill to bear in mind, definitely.
And I would add that if you are struggling, you shouldn't be afraid to ask for help. You shouldn't be afraid to approach a lecturer during office hours, and you shouldn't be afraid. Most universities, I know here and in the US anyways, have writing centers, for example, free services for students who are struggling with writing essays, and they'll go through things with you and help teach you certain skills that were, maybe you have gaps from what you didn't learn in high school. So use the resources that are available to you, I would say, because I think a lot of students don't even know that they're there.
I actually found the writing center in Gothenburg my 4th year at university. It was a bit late by then. Things that can help you. They're often free too, so I mean they're there to help.
I'm really glad that point came up, because I had to go to the writing centre in my first year. I'll put my hand up for that fully. I struggled writing essays, going straight in there, and I think it was the best thing I did. And obviously, when you're not too confident, you don't feel too confident in these pursuits, and you feel, oh God, I'm already having to go to a writing centre to get help. You don't think of it like that. You were being proactive and productive enough to go out there and actually care enough about what you're doing to actually get the help in the first place, and that says a lot more about you than not going to get the help because you're scared.
I just say that's the good thing about the university that I'm going to, is when they send out the welcome packs for the students, and I think they have this on the website as well. They have a list of all the facilities that the students can use, and one of the big ones that they pretty much underline for you is that you can get help with your essays and critical writing, and they even help students with just basic grammar. And I think one of the reasons that they focus on that so much is it's a pretty small uni, so you get a lot more contact time with the lecturers. But most of the unis that I've looked at seem to have those facilities, but most of them don't really point out that they are there and that you can use them. Some unis are a lot more open about it than others, but it's like you guys said, there's no harm in just asking.
Yeah, exactly. No harm at all in asking, and actually, the thing to bear in mind, especially in the UK at the moment, is that because of the hike in terms of the fees that people are paying to go to university, you have a lot more, not only right to expect good service, as it were, as someone who's receiving an education. The key there being an active participant in that education, though, by the way. But also, actually, there's an awful lot more money floating around for these services. So there will be things out there, I mean, which you can help, which will help you. You're not just expected to sink or swim, definitely. Okay, so is there anything that you wish you'd known going into university? Anything that you would maybe even tell yourself about this whole adventure?
Use the library. Learn how to use the library.
Yeah.
You don't have to buy every single book on the list.
Yes. Actually, that's a good point. Yes, the use of reading lists. Yeah, don't OD on them, and also do use the library. Go use the books that are in the library. Sometimes you'll find that they're all taken out, but actually getting to know your library staff and the library system is a good idea, because there will be key people who you will get to know if you're doing it right, and they'll be really helpful. They may even keep a book to one side for you. So yeah, that's a good idea, definitely. Anything else?
It's okay if you fail one or two things in the beginning while you're still getting your feet. There is quite a large jump, and generally people who've gone to university or high achievers, a lot of time you're a high achiever and you're going in and you're expecting to get the same marks you got in high school, and just all of a sudden you're going from 80 being a good mark to 65 being a good mark, and it's just understanding that you are expected to do more, and it's okay if it takes you time to get back to doing really, really well, and that you aren't going to be expected to get the same high level marks in high school. Like I know, yeah, 75 is a first, but in high school, it's 80 is an A.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the jump in terms of quality can be a big thing, and it's a little bit like going from primary school to high school. So you go from being like a big fish in year 6, and then suddenly you're at the bottom of high school. It's exactly the same going to university, and yeah, without a doubt. But also the fact that it's a situation which is more or less designed to make it so that a certain percentile will do very well, and a certain percentile will. You're more likely to be doing okay than you are to be excelling, and it's okay to be okay, I guess, in that sense.
Also, very important point to make, you can choose the wrong subject in the beginning. I mean, I did. I started university reading Japanese, and I failed miserably, because I simply isn't cut out to read language from the beginning at that level. And if you find yourself with water over your head and feeling that you're going to drown, it's okay to change subjects. Do what you enjoy rather than torture yourself.
Yeah. And actually, yeah, that in terms of a grace period, I think most universities are fairly good at allowing you to find what it is that you're wanting to do, just because you've signed up to a certain course. I mean, for example, for me, archaeology and anthropology, I preferred archaeology, so I went over there. But I mean, there are people who sort of, who turn up, who want to be sort of like reading English or something, and then they end up being lawyers, which is kind of weird. So there's lots of room for experimentation, I guess, isn't there?
In the United States, it's a little bit different, because you don't have to, you don't choose your course until your 3rd year. You don't have to declare a major until your 3rd year. So, and at some, any other sort of liberal arts, general education institution, I would recommend taking courses from as many different subjects as possible. I would recommend, even if you sign up as pass-fail instead of, getting an actual grade or audit, take a course in something that is totally new or foreign to you, and just sort of experiment and try as many things as your university will allow, because you could be, I guess, missing out on something you didn't even realize you liked. That's kind of how I walked into anthropology. I was originally trying to be a physics major. So,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And actually, I suppose thinking about, I guess, drawing these ideas to a close. I mean, this has just sort of been general tips, I guess, for people heading off to uni. But I guess one of the most important pieces of advice that someone ever gave me was not really advice; it was more just a reflection. They were looking back on their time in uni, and they sort of said that you won't know it until you've done it, but actually it's a very important time for just finding yourself, and in that sense, don't limit yourself, don't make too many decisions early on, and also don't be too upset if you find out that actually your heart or your personality or your hairstyle, is dramatically different by the end of the experience, because that's kind of the whole point. You're not just there to learn, you're also not just there to party, you're there to improve yourself as a human being, I think. Would you guys, do you think you'd agree with that sort of notion?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a huge growing up experience, especially if you're living away from home for the first time, which I was doing. And to give yourself time to do that. I mean, you will have days when you feel like going back home and curling up under your parents' bed. And it's okay to feel like that for a while. Just don't give up on it.
Best bit of advice that I got was in your first year, they allow you to do this, but they suggest don't do it past first year. That is, use books as references for the most part. So using your textbooks as references. First year, but especially with archaeology, in my experience, and anthropology, they really want you to use journal articles. And these are things that you probably have no relationship with going into university for the first time, but really start reading journal articles and quoting journal articles. And I think your professors, your teachers, they'll be really impressed that you're using journal articles rather than just your quoted textbooks.
Actually, and this is where it ties back in with getting to know your library and maybe asking the right librarian the right question, because they'll know where the journals are, and they'll also actually know, because often there's a special shelf where the latest editions of those journals go, so they'll know where, if you go there, you'll find the latest antiquity or the latest nature or whatever the journal is that you're looking for. That's definitely a good tip. Absolutely. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for your time this evening. I always get this sort of slight sense of fear, this sort of like remembering what it's like at this time of year, heading off to uni. I sort of have like residual fear, but hopefully this has been useful to other people out there who are actually heading off to uni this summer. If anyone out there has any questions, feel free to comment below, and what we'll do is we'll do our best to answer them. You may well get different answers from other commenters and also other people who've been in this video, but hopefully the more answers you get, the better this video will be for you, because there'll be just more good stuff going into the pudding. Okay, guys. Well, as ever, thank you so much for turning up. Bye bye. Bye bye.